Can this Indian girl go from looking very Indian to looking like a Latina? We are indeed jumping on the Latina makeup trend bandwagon. It's all over social media. It's gone viral. I'm going to be starting with a primer, for which I'm going to be using the One Size Secure the Blur Makeup Magnet Primer. I'm using this because we want to go for a super matte look today. And for that reason, I'm not using a hydrating primer because that's going to give me shine. We don't want any shine, so I'm going to be using a matte primer. Also, today's makeup is very different from what I usually do. You may watch me use more quantities than what I usually use. So please don't come after me because I'm specifically doing it for creating today's look. And then I'm jumping to carve out my brows because this takes a little bit of patience and time. First, using the Milani concealer with a flat brush, I'm going to carve out the borders of my brows. Trust me, it's just easier to do it this way. And then I'm going to pick up a black eyeshadow with an angled brush to fill in my brows. This is called Intense. It's from the Boring palette, which is my collaboration with Ofra Cosmetics. But you can use any black eyeshadow or brow filling powder that you have. Because we already drew those borders, it's so much more easier to stay within those lines to fill in the brows. If your brows are very scanty, you can also use a brow pomade. But as you can see, I have very thick brows, so I'm going to stick with the brow powder. And then using the residue that's left on the brush, I'm going to use it in the inner side of my brows, just extending it a tad bit. And then using a spoolie brush, I'm going to quickly smudge it out so it doesn't look too harsh. Now that looks fantastic, exactly what I had envisioned. Now let's go back to the base makeup. Rather than using foundation, I'm going to play around with concealers and bronzers. Starting with the Milani concealer in the shade 145. I'm going to use this to conceal in areas where I have uneven skin tone. Mostly around my dark circles and around my mouth where I have those patches. After applying, I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes before I blend it out with a concealer brush. Now I'm using the shade 145 because as you can see, it's a close match to my skin tone. And that is going to cover up all the unevenness without looking ashy. Now, if you use a lighter color concealer than your skin tone directly over your dark circles and patches, it's going to mix with that darkness and start looking ashy. Now that we've evened it out, I'm going to be using a lighter shade of concealer to highlight the center of my face. This is the Milani concealer in the shade 130. I'm starting with the center of my forehead, then bringing it down to the bridge and tip of my nose, then on the sides of my nose, underneath my eyes, as well as my chin. I'm not going to be using any foundation today because we are going to add a lot of dimension with a lot of bronzer as well as concealer. So I don't want to double up and layer too much. That'll really start looking cakey. So I'm going to stick with just a concealer and bronzer. The lighter shade of concealer is going in the center of my face where I want to highlight. And I'm going to be using the bronzer in the perimeter of my face where I want it to look more bronzy and more sun-kissed. I'll let the concealer sit again for about a minute before I start blending it out so I get more coverage. And I'm using a damp sponge. As I mentioned before, we will be adding a lot of dimension to this look. So I'm not going to be contouring my face, but instead adding a bronzer. So it gives me a lot of warmth. This bronzer stick is from Persona Cosmetics and it's in the shade Sahara. I'm going to use it under my cheekbones, in my forehead, in my jawline, as well as to contour my nose. The formula of the stick is creamy. It blends beautifully. And the best part is you don't have to wait for it to settle down on your face like you did with the concealer. You can immediately start blending it out. Latina makeup does involve a lot of highlighting and bronzing, and this style of makeup looks absolutely stunning. It's one of my favorite styles of makeup. Now that we've added all the dimension on the face, I'm going to even out the skin on my neck as well by using a foundation. This is the Turn Up the Base Full Beat Foundation by One Size, and I'm using the shade Medium 65R. The way I'm going to set my face is also going to be quite different today. I'm not going to be using the translucent powder all over my face. First, I'm going to be using a deeper shade of powder in the perimeter of my face. This is the Makeup Forever HD Skin Matte Velvet Blurring Setting Powder in the shade Hazelnut. Now that set that bronzer beautifully, and I felt like the nose needed a little bit of contouring. So I'm going to be using a neutral shade of brown. The shade is called Depth. With a small fluffy flat shading brush, I'm going to quickly contour my nose. You just need a tad bit of this product, that's it, and it makes a huge difference. And then I'm going to be using the One Size Translucent Loose Powder to carve out my nose further. I'm also going to use it to set my concealer. We've already set the bronzer with the Makeup Forever HD powder. So we're not going to touch that part, which is the perimeter of the face. We're just going to focus on the center of the face and the high points where I use the concealer. You can see how slim my nose is already looking. Again, that just shows that with makeup is magic. So you can completely shape shift using makeup. Also, we obviously want a very bright center, and that's why I'm using it to set my concealer. Which also means I'm going to let it bake for a couple minutes before I dust it off. And then to create that cute button nose, I'm using a pencil. This is an eye pencil actually by ColourPop Cosmetics. I'm just going to draw a circle on the tip of my nose and quickly blend it out with my finger. And then I'm going to use the Ofra highlighter in Flash. I'm just using it with my finger and applying it to the bridge and tip of my nose. We want to keep the bronzer dominating this look, but I also want to add a tad bit of blush, but something that looks very muted. And for that reason, I'm going to be using Villa. This is by Benefit Cosmetics. It's a very light blush. This is probably the only tutorial where I'm not going to be doing eye makeup. Eye makeup is my strength, but in this one, we're not doing any eye makeup. Unless we call an eyeliner also eye makeup. Technically, that's true, because a winged liner is also makeup, and for which I'm going to be using the Inglot gel liner using the triangle method. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to link it right on top. I'm going to pull out a small wing in the outer corner and line my lash line. And then it's time to curl the lashes, and I'm going to be using the Sally Hansen curler before I apply a coat of mascara, for which I'm going to be using the Milk Makeup Kush mascara. I love to use mascara on my lower lashes, but for this look, we will completely skip that and move to using false lashes, for which I'm going to be using Lily Lashes in Miami. And then using Halo from the palette, I'm going to highlight the inner corners as well as brow bones. I love the fact that my palette has the black and white. They are so versatile. And then for lips, we're going bigger and bolder, for which I have to mute my lips because it's quite thin. We want a bigger lip. I'm going to be using Milani Concealer in the shade 145. I'm going to start with a lip pencil. This is the Makeup Forever pencil in the shade Limitless Brown. We're going to keep the lips nude but bold. So the lip liner is going to be prominent. I'm going to deepen the outer corners and thicken the borders just a tad bit. And then I'm going to use a brush to soften the edges so it flows beautifully into the lipstick. And then in the center of the lip, I'm going to be using a lipstick. And this is Bestie by Ofra Cosmetics. This is again my first collaboration with Ofra Cosmetics. And what a stunning shade this is. Let's look at the before one more time. And this is the after. Do I look anywhere close to a Latina? Please let me know in comments. And just to clarify, I'm very happy and very proud to be an Indian. So please don't come at me that I'm creating a look that's not Indian. Because there's always somebody who comes up and says, you're trying to be someone else. You're not proud of your roots. I absolutely am very proud of who I am. But I like to create different looks because I'm an artist. And I truly appreciate makeup from all parts of the world. Each one is so unique and so stunning. So let's all celebrate the different styles of makeup. And that's why I have my channel here, so we can form that community. Check out my description box for all the products that I used today. And if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe to watch more videos like these and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. I love you guys so much, and I will see you soon with a brand new one. Bye guys.